Welcome to the Love on Top podcast, where we're going to talk love, relationships, marriage, family, everything in between. For those who don't know, my name is Ian. I'm here with my smart, beautiful, amazing mom, amazing wife.
Keep going.
All of the above, man. Just an amazing person. My wife, my better half, my partner, Shaniqua. So it's the podcast, the Love on Top podcast, episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1.
We're finally doing it. Finally doing it. Clap for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Round of applause.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we kind of wanted to start the podcast because honestly, we've talked about it for a little bit of time, but we just kind of wanted some us time. I think it's a good opportunity to kind of like do something just for us.
Yeah.
Being parents all the time. All the time, but yeah, being parents 24/7, obviously, it's difficult to kind of find time for just us.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to really just kind of talk. Maybe it'll be therapeutic for us, and really just kind of.
I think it's been a long time coming. Something that you've wanted to do for a while, so I'm happy that we're finally doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm excited for it. And I do feel like we have kind of like a unique story.
Yeah.
If you know us, then you know the story a little bit. But it is a unique story, just kind of how we got together, how long we've been together. I think it's, a little bit different, kind of unorthodox. People don't usually kind of come together the way that we did for as long as we've been together. And stay together, right? Yeah. For as long as we have. So it's been 17 years together, almost 18 years, married for 7 years, almost 8 years.
Yep. Got married on our 10-year dating anniversary.
10-year dating anniversary. And we got 2 beautiful girls together.
Yeah.
So really living the dream. Living the dream together.
Can't complain. Very blessed.
Can't complain at all. No, very blessed. I agree with that. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of get into the story for people who don't really know how we got together. I don't know if you kind of want to touch on that or you want me to.
Well, we were in high school. We were high school sweethearts. We've known each other since elementary, though we went to the same elementary school.
Right.
But I was in a grade higher than you.
Yep.
So we didn't really talk or obviously have any dialogue until high school.
Yeah. You didn't know I existed, but it kind of goes back. It goes back a little deeper for me. Not in a weird way, but I knew that we were, we went to school together. I knew who you were. You didn't really know who I was because you were in the chorus. You were always singing and in concerts. So I kind of had a little bit of a crush, elementary school crush, but you didn't really know who I was. So it goes a little bit back, a little bit further for me than it does for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, the story really starts for both of us together, I guess, in high school. When we kind of came together. And I guess just a little about that.
I remember you told me that you always had your eye on me. And I remember in high school, one of my friends came up to me. This was before we even got together. I think I was actually still in another relationship. And she's like, "Do you know Ian Harris?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Do y'all talk?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Well, he said that you was his baby or something like that."
No,
and
I said my wife.
Okay. And I'm like,
wasn't that weird?
And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, I told him, no, you're lying." So, I mean, that just kind of proves.
Yeah. Yeah, I had my eye on you. I was kind of speaking it into existence, I guess. Manifesting, right? I did have my eye on you. And I've always noticed you. I feel like everyone always noticed you. But like me, I was kind of like, I think my allure was that I was kind of like in the background a little bit. Not in a weird way. Like I'm like just watching you from the corner, but I was kind of in the background in the sense that like I didn't really say much. I didn't do too much. I wasn't like one of those people, if I was in the room, you wasn't going to be like, "Oh, why is he doing all this?"
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of, yeah.
I feel like you still are though. So.
Yeah. So I guess my question is like, what attracted you to me specifically?
At the beginning?
At the beginning, yeah.
I thought you were cute.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
I mean, we were 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were 16, and I just thought you were cute. I actually remember one of my good friends. I don't know where we were. I think we were at a party and we seen you. And then I remember us like going to her house that night and we slept over. And I remember just telling her like, you know, who I think's cute. And then I'm like, Ian.
Yeah.
And then like we just like made a little joke like, I'm gonna have to like get him or something like that. And then she just laughs at me because she's like, you said it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that easy because you didn't make
wasn't.
it easy.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like what made you kind of like want me more so because you were so
Maybe.
used to people chasing you, and
Not
I was really
really.
like
Not chasing me.
courting you maybe, but I was really,
I guess showing interest in me. You
yeah, I
didn't,
guess
you
that's
didn't
what
show
it,
interest.
yeah, I guess that's what it was. No, I didn't.
You were all about your friends and hanging out with your bros, and you just really didn't care about dating, I guess, at the time.
Yeah, in a sense, like yeah, I would
we
say
we were 16, so
right, and I would say that like it's not that I wasn't interested in you, I just wasn't into what it took to kind of show my interest. I wasn't really the type that was gonna chase or
yeah.
you know, do a lot of that. So I think that's kind of like put you off a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, because I felt like we were talking, and then I just felt like, you know, he's not showing interest, and then I'm like, I'm done, and then we stopped for a little bit, and then we picked it back up, and then
Yeah. So yeah, I guess yeah to touch on that. So we were talking for a long time actually, and I kind of fell back a little bit in that instance because I thought you were more into one of my friends, which I know you guys had a commonality.
Yeah,
you
we
went
had
to school
history.
together.
We were in the
Right.
same grade, and you know,
Right.
yeah. Do you remember me sending you that carnation on Valentine's Day?
I remember you sending it, but I wasn't in class.
Oh, of course you were.
Yeah, I wasn't in class, so I didn't.
Of course you were.
Yeah. So I didn't actually receive it, but I do remember you sending it.
That was funny. So that was kind of like, hey,
That was your
I think
way.
you're
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got the hint. I knew that you thought that, but I didn't necessarily act on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe as much as like somebody else would have if they would have jumped on a chance, which, you know, that's, I guess that's the part of our story, the weird little like, you know,
but
quirky
I was
part
like,
of it.
what is going on? Like, you was getting on my nerves. You
Yeah.
and my friends. They were like, what is wrong with him? I'm like,
Yeah. But then I eventually came around though. I remember like time had passed. We weren't really talking. I seen you at a party. And I told one of my friends, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go get her. And then from then on.
We danced.
Yeah, we danced, you know.
and that was it. It was history.
Yeah, and then we've kind of been together and inseparable since. I remember like calling you and we talked all night and I was planning on asking you out and it was like I called you after 7 because it was like free minutes back then. We had like the free minutes or whatever when you had to, that's how, you know, to age yourselves a little bit. But yeah, we had the free minutes. So
Mine
I remember
was free after 6. I remember. I
Yeah,
paid
you
like
had
an
the-
extra $5 a
you know,
month.
the upgrade. Yeah, the upgrade. Yeah. So yeah, I remember calling you and we talked all night.
Yep.
And then I finally like worked up the courage before the phone cut off to ask you. And I guess that was a big deal back then, like asking you to, you know, I want you to be my girlfriend or however I put it at the time.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was that. But, you know, with us being together for so long, obviously there's a learning curve that comes with that, especially someone like me who wasn't really into dating too much.
Yeah.
And then you were more into dating, so I feel like there was like a little bit of a learning curve. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think about that? Like in your opinion, how do you feel about getting together so young, and like what that actually does to the relationship, especially being like high school sweethearts? Because if we had got together, it'd be like a thing of the past, obviously. But being that we're still together, or you know, got together, broke up. But being that we're still together, I do feel like there's like a little bit of a difference between if we would have met each other at the age of like 27.
Yeah. No, I feel
or
like
25.
the history and the time that we've put in, I feel like it's made our relationship good, but I also feel like that,
Good?
Yeah.
Just good?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, I thought it would be better than that. Just good. Okay.
It's made our relationship good.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's also kind of there's like a bad side to it just because of like growing pains.
Right.
We literally grew up together. So we had to deal with each
Right.
other's bullshit.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. But,
Yeah, but
yeah.
not, and that's what I think. What I talked to you about recently was like, I don't. For me personally, I guess the bad side of it is I don't get the luxury of like, I was 17 when I did this, or I was 16 when I did that, or said this. So like, we carry that over into our adult relationship where, you know, normally as a teenager, you kind of get that like you write that off, like, oh, okay, you drank one time, you smoked weed one time, and then like it's just a thing in the past. It's like, oh, he's a better person now, and then, you know, he was a kid when he did that. But I don't really get that luxury because whatever happened in our relationship happened to both of us.
Yeah, because it's still here.
It's still
me.
like a thing, right? Yeah, so you still remember it. So
Yeah.
like, if we're having like a disagreement about something, or you know, bring something up, which all couples do, it's like a shock to me because I'm like, I was 17, but to you, you're like, well, it still happened to me. And it's just weird because you don't get to kind of like move forward. And I think I told you this before. I was like, if I had a son and like he made a mistake or did something, like just was a certain way in his past, or like wasn't necessarily a bad person, just like a bad boyfriend at the time, and like his wife was carrying it over into the like 20 years later, like I don't know what type of advice I would have for that person, because it's just like, it's tough because you are still dealing with that. Obviously, like whatever the situation was, the issue was, whatever we said to each other, like we're both still dealing with it, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like you were 17 too. So like, if you called me a name at 17, I'm like holding on to that, but it's like you were 17 years old. So
Right. No, yeah. And I think that was more of a factor, like again, we got together when we were 16. So I think that was more of a factor in our like early 20s.
yeah.
Where we used to like harbor on a lot of like stuff in the past.
Yeah.
So I think that's the downfall of being together for so long.
Yeah.
But, you know, now that we're mid 30s, well, you know, 34.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be 34 next week.
I will be. I will be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that we still like harbor on,
Right.
you know. But no, I do think that's being together for so long. Obviously, like I said, I feel like the history and the time is what makes the relationship good or great.
Yeah,
but
I'd say great, but yeah.
but yeah, I feel like that's the downfall because you have to learn, you have to grow up together. So you go through all those growing pains.
It's true. And I will say that, like, I feel like, I guess I'm curious from like your standpoint. We never really talked about this because we always say like how intense our relationship was.
It was.
And like how we were
It was
so
intense.
determined. And I think that's like kind of what the theme of the show is, like love on top. Like we loved each other so hard even early on that I feel like we kind of put that above everything else. So like, I'm curious on your perspective of like what made you so sure that you wanted to like fight for me specifically. And then I'll kind of tell you what I got from that.
I mean, I feel like, you know, when you're that young, I feel like everything just is so much more, like, I feel like you can't kind of rationalize things. So obviously I was in love with you, you were in love with me, so I wanted it to work. So, you know, when we weren't together, it's like, oh God, the world's ending. So I feel like, you know, I feel like that's just...
So what it was for you?
Yeah.
So for me, like, I think maybe not when we were 17, but like our mid 20s, I started to like really internalize what like you kind of did for me in those instances. Cause I was like, you showed me like unconditional love, which is like weird. And like, I hadn't really felt that until you and then like our kids. So like for me, what made me fight so hard for you was the fact that like, it was like, damn, she loves me and she doesn't have to. And she fights for me and she doesn't have to. And that kind of like intensified it for me, where like early on, it kind of made me like, oh, she's the one. And we were kind of playing house, I feel like, because I like kind of attached to that.
Yeah.
That part of our relationship was like, she's like loves me unconditionally. And I didn't have that. So I feel like I clinged on to it so hard. So like when we would argue and you're like, oh, I'm done, and you would storm off, I couldn't like let you go.
Yeah.
Not in like a toxic way, but it was like I had to fight for our relationship. So I was like, I thought about that the other day, and I was like, wow, that's intense at like a young age, like in our 20s.
Oh goodness, you made my answer seem.
No. That, I mean, that your answer's your answer. No.
I'm trying to like put myself back to like my 16 brain.
Yeah.
So that's fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said the other day, like we've been together longer
than we've been apart. Yeah.
Yeah, in our lives.
Literally, right. 17 years, going on 18 years. So we'll be together like a whole year longer than we lived without each other.
Yeah.
Which is crazy when you really think about it. Like,
so just trying to put myself back into that mindset, you know, I mean, I wasn't really thinking too much about like the future. It was just kind of like the then and like the right now. And I just knew that, you know, I loved you and I wanted it to work. So I felt like that's why I kept holding on. So.
Yeah. You didn't feel like I was like a project, like I'm gonna make him the perfect boyfriend, because I know like some people kind of get into that, like
no,
you feel like you can fix the person.
No,
whatever.
I mean, you know, I feel like there was some things that you needed to work on, which me too. I mean, again, we were 16. Obviously, we were both young and immature. I do feel like it was kind of harder for me to deal with some of your stuff.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, just some of our upbringings and some of our like, you know, traumas and stuff like that. But no, I mean, you've always been a good person. So
yeah, I think I like to say I'm a good person.
Yeah.
I think it's like underrated how important like your upbringing is in a relationship too, especially at a young age, because again, coming in at 17 years old, like you're dealing with like how someone else's parents raised them, and like the trauma that their parents had brought in. So I do think that that's like a difficult like feat in a relationship, to be honest, because especially that early on.
And I do kind of feel like I was always a daddy's girl, so I always had like this wanted to be treated like a princess mentality. Yeah. So I felt like I kind of like, you know, brung that onto you.
Yeah, definitely.
When you weren't even like a relationship type, so I felt like that was a lot to like manage and kind of you know, get your mind in that mindset. I was spoiled. I mean, I still am, but
yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that, and not in a bad way.
I blame my dad, but yeah, it was always like kind of like, you know, princess, got what I want, and you know, you kind of you weren't that like you didn't have that like boyfriend mindset, so like babying me, you know, the whole princess treatment, like not that you treated me bad.
Yeah, let's clear that up.
Yeah, not that you treated me bad.
Let's make that clear first.
But you know, it was just different.
It was different, yeah. Yeah, because now that I like think about it, the way that I treat you now is like way different, and even like down the road in our relationship is different. How I not treat you, handle you. We'll say like very like delicate and like baby, kind of how you, not baby, but like how you know, like a princess, like you said, very like delicate. And then I see that now, obviously, like having daughters, so it's like, okay, you want to kind of be a little tender, more tender than you normally were. But yeah, not even that I wasn't like relationship oriented. I do feel like you kind of changed my routine a little bit.
Yeah, no, I did. I honestly felt like I interrupted you and your friend's routine.
Yeah, it did.
No, because y'all were very like brothers. This like
spend every day together.
Yeah, like y'all had plans to go to college together and do it all this stuff, and then I came in the picture, and I'm like, hold up now, like I'm here now.
Because I remember like being young, and then like you would call me and it was like, oh yeah, I'm out of town, and it was like you wouldn't know that like we did something, so that was like weird. But other than like us getting together, and I mean that's like a more, the beginning stages, I don't think it's like there's not really too much to talk about in the beginning stages, I guess, of that. It kind of gets a little bit, we'll get deeper into that, I guess, when we start talking about when we moved in together and like that or whatever. But just kind of touching base back on how it affects you now. I do think it was really great for our relationship because we built like this best friend bond.
Yeah.
But now I feel like we're like family, which is like,
I hope you feel like that.
this. No, I definitely feel like that. But I do feel like it's like this unexplained like bond that we've built being high school sweethearts that like really makes us like family. Where again, like you've been with me or we've been together for more than we've been apart. So it kind of builds like this strong bond that I feel like is like a little bit different and that we wouldn't have if we hadn't like kind of went through the mud together.
Yeah.
It's almost like a trauma bond, but not but not trauma just because of like the growing pains.
Yeah.
So like growing together and those growing pains I feel like kind of made us stronger. It's really like how you would look at a best friendship that you had for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's like the one thing you guys have in common is that you've known each other for 15 years and you know, or the main thing you have in common is that, and then you build everything around that.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about, like, would you recommend being married to your high school sweetheart or wouldn't you? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Taking, like, not saying
100%.
like you regret like us or like not knowing the finish line. Like, would you say like, yeah, you should do it?
Yeah. 100%. If the relationship's right, if you're being treated well, 100%. I feel like obviously we've had bad times, you know, everybody does, but the good outweighs the bad tremendously. So yeah, definitely. Now, would I recommend getting so serious so young?
Yeah.
That's another story.
Probably
I don't
not,
know.
right.
Like if I would give advice to our girls, I don't think I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if Arian came home in 10 years and was
10
like,
years she'll be
16 and she said that she had like a serious boyfriend and she's like just inseparable. Like I feel like I would tell her like,
slow down. You have
slow
your whole
down.
life to get serious and do all that stuff because it was just it was a lot. It was intense to be so young but so in love.
Yeah. But putting ourselves in our parents' shoes, which I don't think we got that pushback from either side. If one of them had told us that, like,
we wouldn't have listened.
There's no way we would have like listened to that.
No, we wouldn't.
So I don't even know how we would provide that advice if like we knew we wouldn't listen, but I feel like we would have to tell her.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't tell her like don't. I would just tell her, just take it slow.
Just relax a little bit.
Yeah.
He's not going nowhere.
You have your whole lives. If he's the one, he'll be there.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But I do feel like it worked out for us.
Well, yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
The proof is in the pudding.
Right. It did. Yeah. It worked out, and we just kind of like grew such a strong bond. Everything that we kind of went through together, I think, it's a unique situation. And then obviously, like everybody kind of builds their bonds in different ways, but I do think it was like a unique way for us to get together. And again, going back to like the podcast, like that's kind of why I wanted to start this, and it's just because I feel like people know we got together early, and it's always like, oh, you guys have been together like since diapers, you know what I mean? It's like a funny thing, but like people don't really know what kind of went into it behind the scenes and like how much work it was. And it may have been more work than it needed to be.
100%.
And had we met each other at like 27, I feel like you'd benefit more from like, wow, this guy is like put together. The finished product, rather than like seeing the journey. Like no one wants to see how the shirt is made, or you know what I mean? No one wants to see the food get made. They just kind of want to eat it. So I think that's the hard part about it, is like you see how the hot dog is made essentially. And that's really the downside to it. But yeah, I just think we have like a unique story to tell. I'm excited to tell people about like our relationship in the beginning, that's a good backstory, but just kind of see where we are now. I think everyone can relate at this point, our age, to being married or on their way to being married, being parents.
Yeah.
And just talk love in general and just kind of have a therapy session with each other, vent a little bit, have a drink. And it's really just a moment for us to kind of be not parents for a second. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, kids are in the back of our mind. We can essentially see them right now. But we can just kind of talk, and we don't have to, be interrupted. Because that's like, parents know that's something that happens every day. You're going to be interrupted 100 times during the conversation.
Yeah.
Drinks going to get spilled. Someone's going to be climbing on you, needing something from you. So this is just like a great opportunity for us to talk and really get to, get down to the nitty gritty. How do you feel about the podcast? So
Good.
How do you feel about?
I feel good. I'm glad we're finally doing it. Like I said, I feel like we've been talking about it for a while. I know it's something that you've always wanted to do, and I'm excited. I'm happy.
Me too. So I think that's probably enough for episode 1. We didn't really get into too much details because we have some ideas as far as what we want to talk about later on, and episodes later we definitely want to kind of give a breakdown of different parts of our journey, as well as kind of ask some questions to ourselves, and just really kind of bring it all back together. But we definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in thus far, and check in with us for episode 2.
Yeah.